subscribe to Storylab. Now, let's begin this one. Victor Sutton had killed men in 14 countries, but he'd never felt the particular coldness that settled in his chest when he saw his son stumbling through the gates of Fort Bragg on Christmas morning. Jake's face was unrecognizable, swollen, purple, and black, his jaw hanging at an angle that made Victor's stomach turn. The 19-year-old collapsed into his father's arms, blood soaking through Victor's shirt. "Dad," Jake managed through broken teeth, his words slurred and wet. "Stepmom's family. He couldn't finish. He didn't need to." Victor carried his son to the base hospital, his mind already cataloging injuries with the detachment of his 23 years in Special Forces. Fractured orbital bone, broken jaw, 3 cracked ribs, concussion, internal bleeding. This wasn't a fight. This was attempted murder. The doctors sedated Jake after setting his jaw, and Victor sat beside the hospital bed, watching his son's chest rise and fall. His phone buzzed. A video message from an unknown number. He almost deleted it, then recognized the thumbnail: Jake's car in a driveway he knew too well. Victor's ex-wife Rebecca's new house in Pinehurst. He pressed play. The video was 17 minutes long. Shot from a second-story window, it showed Jake arriving at the house with Christmas presents. Victor recognized Rebecca immediately, standing on the porch with her new husband Wayne Dolan and his extended family. What happened next made Victor's jaw clench so hard he thought his teeth might crack. They'd invited Jake inside. Then they'd locked the doors. Through the window, he could hear Jake's confusion turning to alarm, then terror. One by one, Wayne's relatives emerged from different rooms: brothers, cousins, nephews, their wives, 17 people total. They circled Jake like wolves. Wayne threw the first punch. Victor watched his son try to defend himself. Try to run. Try to reason with them. They beat him systematically, taking turns. Rebecca stood in the corner, filming on her phone, laughing. Actually, laughing. At one point, she zoomed in on Jake's face as Wayne's brother kicked him in the jaw. "That's what you get for thinking you're better than us," she said off camera. "Your daddy's fancy military base don't mean shit here." The video ended with Jake crawling out the front door, blood trailing behind him. Someone threw his presents after him, smashed and torn. Victor watched it 3 times, memorized every face. Then he called his most trusted contact at the Judge Advocate General's office. "I need names and addresses," he said. "All of them." Victor Sutton had grown up in Tennessee coal country, the kind of place where men went into mines at 18 and came out in coffins at 40. His father had been one of them. Victor had enlisted the day after the funeral, age 17, forging his mother's signature. The Army had given him purpose, structure, and an outlet for the rage that had been building since he watched his father die coughing up black lung. He'd excelled. Rangers first, then Delta Force, then an instructor position that let him shape the next generation of killers for the government. He married Rebecca during his second deployment, a mistake he recognized within a year. She wanted the military wife status, the benefits, the base housing. She hadn't wanted the deployments, the secrecy, the man who came home different each time. Jake had been the only good thing from that marriage. Victor had raised him alone after Rebecca left when Jake was 6, taking her affair with Wayne Dolan, a tobacco farmer's son, back to North Carolina. She'd fought for custody, but lost when her lawyer discovered the extent of her prescription pill problem. Now Jake was in college at UNC, studying engineering, brilliant and kind, and everything Victor had hoped he'd be. Rebecca had reached out 6 months ago, claiming she was clean, wanting to rebuild their relationship. Victor had encouraged it. Jake deserved a mother, even a flawed one. He'd delivered his son into their hands. The thought made Victor's vision go red. "Colonel Sutton?" A nurse appeared in the doorway. "There's a Sheriff Dolan here to see you." Chester Dolan filled the doorway. 6'4" and running to fat, his sheriff's uniform straining at the buttons. Rebecca's father. He'd been a mediocre cop who'd gotten elected sheriff through family connections and voter suppression. Victor had never liked him, and the feeling was mutual. "Heard there was an incident," Chester said, not entering the room. "Want to tell me what happened to your boy?" "He got jumped by 17 people in your daughter's house while she filmed it," Victor said calmly. "I have the video. Want to see it?" Chester's face went carefully blank. "Now, I'm sure there's been some misunderstanding. Get out." You threatening me, Colonel? Victor stood slowly, stepping close enough that Chester had to look up slightly. I'm telling you to leave this hospital before I forget which country I'm in. Your daughter and her criminal family tried to kill my son on Christmas Eve. If you're here in any official capacity, come back with a warrant. If you're here as family, you just became complicit. Chester's hand dropped to his service weapon. You ain't got no authority here. This is a federal military installation. You have no jurisdiction. Leave. Now. They stared at each other for a long moment. Chester broke first, backing into the hallway. You better watch yourself, Sutton. My family don't take kindly to accusations. That sounds like a threat, Sheriff. I'll be sure to include it in my report. After Chester left, Victor made one call. Greg, he said when his second-in-command answered. I need you to monitor a situation. Sheriff Chester Dolan, Pinehurst PD. I want to know every move he makes. What's going on, sir? Family matter. I'll brief you tomorrow. Victor hung up and returned to Jake's bedside. His son stirred, eyes fluttering open. Dad? The word was barely audible through his wired jaw. I'm here. I'm sorry. I thought she wanted to make things right. I thought. Tears leaked from Jake's swollen eyes. Victor took his son's hand carefully, avoiding the IV. You have nothing to apologize for. You try to see the good in people. That's not a weakness, Jake. That's what makes you better than them. What are we going to do? Victor was quiet for a long moment. We're going to let the law handle it. Jake knew his father well enough to hear the lie, but he was too tired and drugged to argue. He drifted back to sleep, and Victor sat in the darkness, planning. The law wouldn't handle it. Chester would protect his family. Even with video evidence, they'd claim self-defense, say Jake attacked first, that he was drunk or on drugs. The Dolans owned half of Pinehurst through various business ventures, legitimate and otherwise. They owned the local judge. They owned the prosecutor. But Victor Sutton had trained over 3,000 special operators in his career. Men and women who could infiltrate enemy compounds, extract high-value targets, and disappear without a trace. His current class had 32 students, the best of the best, pulled from every branch of service. They'd been training in unconventional warfare, deep reconnaissance, and urban operations. And they all owed him their careers. The next morning, Victor stood before his class in the briefing room. 32 faces looked back at him. Army Rangers, Navy SEALs, Marine Raiders, Air Force Special Tactics. The elite of the elite. He'd been teaching them advanced close-quarters combat and tactical planning for 6 weeks. They had 4 weeks left in the course. Before we begin today's lesson, Victor said, I have an extra credit opportunity, purely voluntary. He pulled up the video on the projector. Didn't say anything, just let them watch. 17 minutes of his son being beaten while Rebecca laughed and filmed. When it ended, the room was silent. That's my son, Victor said quietly. 19 years old, engineering student, never been in a fight in his life. These 17 people lured him into a house on Christmas Eve and did that to him. The woman filming is my ex-wife. Her father is the local sheriff. He clicked to the next slide. 17 photographs and dossiers. Wayne Dolan, 42, tobacco farmer. 2 DUIs, 1 assault charge dropped. Likes to hunt deer with illegal spotlight rigs. Victor's voice was steady, clinical. His brother Spencer Dolan, 38, owns a pawn shop suspected of fencing stolen goods. Currently on probation. He went through all 17. The cousins, the nephews, the wives who'd participated. Their addresses, their routines, their weaknesses. He'd spent all night compiling the information. Here's the extra credit assignment. Victor continued. Make them disappear. All of them. No bodies, no evidence, no connection to me or this base. You have complete operational freedom. I want them to know fear like my son knew fear. And then I want them gone. The room remained silent for 3 seconds. Then every hand went up. All 32. Outstanding, Victor said. He distributed packets, each containing detailed target information. You'll work in pairs. Coordinate through encrypted channels only. No communication that leads back to this base or to me. You've been trained to operate in hostile territory, where the enemy has home field advantage. Consider this your final exam. A hand rose. It was Adam Adkins, a Navy SEAL from Kentucky. Rules of engagement, sir? Victor met his eyes. Remember, no mercy. That afternoon, Victor drove to Pinehurst. Not to the Dolan house, but to a bar 3 miles away where Spencer Dolan spent every evening. Victor ordered a beer and waited, watching the door in the mirror behind the bar. Spencer arrived at 6, loud and already drunk from wherever he'd been. He was a thick man, all shoulders and gut, with the Dolan family's weak chin and mean eyes. Victor nursed his beer and listened to Spencer brag to the bartender about teaching that punk kid a lesson. Should have seen his face when we closed the door. Spencer laughed. Thought he was coming for a nice family Christmas. Stupid shit. Victor's hand tightened on his glass. He forced himself to relax, to wait. Spencer finished 3 more beers, then stumbled toward the bathroom. Victor followed a minute later. The bathroom was empty except for Spencer at the urinal. Victor locked the door behind him. Hey! Occupied. Spencer started to turn. Victor grabbed him by the throat and slammed him against the wall, cutting off his air. Spencer's eyes went wide, his face purpling. Victor leaned in close. You recognize me? Victor asked softly. Jake Sutton's father. Spencer tried to swing, but Victor was faster, slamming his head into the tile once, twice. Spencer slumped, dazed. What you did to my son, Victor continued, his voice conversational, was a mistake. You thought there'd be no consequences because your uncle's the sheriff. You thought you could gang up on a kid and walk away laughing. He released Spencer's throat. The man gasped for air, blood running from his nose. I'm not going to kill you, Victor said. That would be too quick. I'm going to take everything from you. Your business, your freedom, your family's respect, your peace of mind. And when you're broken and terrified and have nothing left, when you're begging for it to end, then maybe I'll let you disappear. He stepped back. Spencer collapsed to the floor, coughing. Go home. Spencer, call your family. Tell them what's coming. Victor left him there and drove back to Fort Bragg. His phone buzzed with an encrypted message from Adam Adkins. Eyes on target 3 and 7. Await go signal. Victor replied, execute. The operations began that night. Wayne Dolan's brother-in-law, Ryan Haas, ran a small construction company. At 2 a.m., he was sleeping in his house when his phone rang. A panicked voice, his foreman said there'd been an accident at their current job site. A gas line rupture. Ryan needed to come immediately before someone called the fire department, and they got hit with violations. Ryan drove to the half-finished strip mall on the edge of town, found the gate open, his foreman's truck in the lot. He grabbed his flashlight and hard hat, walked into the structure. The foreman wasn't there. No gas smell either. Hello? Ryan called. 2 figures emerged from the shadows. Ryan never saw their faces. They were wearing balaclavas and moved like smoke. He tried to run, but they were faster. One sweep of his legs, and he was down. They zip-tied his hands and feet, gagged him, and threw him into an unmarked van parked in the construction bay. Where should we take this one? One of them asked. Colorado, the other replied. Got a contact who runs a labor camp for illegal logging operations. They're not picky about documentation. Ryan Haas disappeared from North Carolina that night. His truck was found at the job site. His phone was in a dumpster 50 miles away. The police report listed him as a missing person, possible voluntary departure due to gambling debts, a nice detail Victor's students had discovered during their research. Target eliminated. 1 of 17. Wayne Dolan's nephew, Cody Shepard, was a hunting guide. He took rich clients into the backcountry for week-long expeditions. On December 27th, he was supposed to be leading a group into the Uwharrie National Forest. The clients arrived at the meeting point to find a note. Emergency family matter. Refunds processed. Sorry for inconvenience. Cody was actually 70 miles away, hooded and restrained in the back of a pickup truck driven by 2 members of Victor's class. They'd intercepted him on his way to the meeting point, using a fake traffic stop. The uniforms looked real, because they were real, borrowed from a contact in the MPs. They drove him to an abandoned farm in Virginia, one of many properties that existed in bureaucratic limbo after foreclosures. Cody was locked in a concrete root cellar with a bucket, some bottled water, and a camping lantern. What do you want? He screamed through the door. Money? I'll get you money. No one answered. The door was welded shut from the outside. There was enough food and water for about 2 weeks. Whether someone would eventually find him or not wasn't their concern. The operation spec called for disappearance, not death. If he survived long enough to be found, he'd be too broken and terrified to tell a coherent story. Target eliminated. 2 of 17. Rebecca Dolan spent December 27th calling her family members, trying to organize everyone for a meeting. She'd heard from Spencer about the psycho who attacked him in the bathroom. She'd gotten nervous calls from Ryan's wife and Cody's girlfriend, asking if she knew where they were. She hadn't, but her father Chester told her not to worry. Probably just coincidence. But Rebecca felt something wrong in her gut. She'd sent that video to Victor as a power play, a way of showing him that she could hurt his precious son and there was nothing he could do about it. She'd expected him to threaten legal action, to rage impotently. Instead, there'd been silence. That silence was worse than any threat. She tried calling Jake at the hospital, but they wouldn't put her through. She tried calling Victor directly, but he didn't answer. Finally, she drove to Fort Bragg herself, showed up at the visitor's gate demanding to see her son. "Ma'am, you're not on the approved visitor list," the MP told her. "I'm his mother." "Yes, ma'am, and you're still not on the list. You need to leave the premises." Rebecca sat in her car outside the gate, shaking. She pulled out her phone, scrolled to the video she'd filmed, watched Wayne's fist connect with Jake's jaw, watched her son fall. She thought it was funny at the time. Satisfying. Even. Jake had always been so proud of his father, so dismissive of her new family. She wanted to take him down a few pegs. Now, watching it again, she felt the first flutter of real fear. Her phone rang. Unknown number. "Mrs. Dolan," a female voice said when she answered. "This is Deputy Marshal Andrea Cross. We need to discuss your son's case. I'll only talk to my father. Your father has been removed from the investigation due to conflict of interest. I'm calling to inform you that we have video evidence of you filming an assault. We'll need you to come in for questioning." There's no federal. The victim is the dependent of a federal military officer. The assault occurred on video, which you transmitted electronically across state lines, making it a federal matter. You have the right to have counsel present. Please report to the federal building in Raleigh by tomorrow at 9 a.m. The line went dead. Rebecca sat frozen. That call hadn't sounded right. Something about the woman's tone, the phrasing. She tried calling Chester, but he didn't answer. She tried Wayne, who told her to calm down and stop being paranoid. "Your father will fix this," Wayne said. "He always does." But Chester wasn't fixing anything. He was in his office, staring at a map of Moore County with 17 pins marking addresses. 2 of those pins had red X's over them, now Ryan and Cody, both missing within 24 hours of each other. It couldn't be Victor. The man was on a military base with hundreds of witnesses. Chester had already made inquiries. Victor hadn't left Fort Bragg since Christmas morning. His alibi was airtight, but Chester knew, deep in his gut, the same instinct that had kept him alive through 20 years of policing, he knew Victor was behind this. The timing was too perfect. The targets too specific. His phone rang. "Blocked number." "Sheriff Dolan," a male voice said. "I have information about your missing family members." "Who is this?" "A concerned citizen. Your nephew Cody is currently in a root cellar at the old Henderson farm on Route 402 inches, Virginia. Your brother-in-law Ryan is on his way to an illegal logging camp in Colorado. If you hurry, you might be able to retrieve one of them. But I wouldn't waste time on both. Listen here, you son of a... Check the Henderson farm first. Cody's only got about 10 days of supplies." The line went dead. Chester stared at his phone. A trap? Probably. But if Cody was really there and Chester didn't go, and the kid died. He called 2 of his deputies, both Dolan cousins, and told them to meet him at the Henderson farm. They'd go in tactical, prepared for anything. If it was Victor's people waiting, well, Chester had legal authority to engage in self-defense. They arrived at dusk, 3 squad cars, tactical vests, rifles. The old farm was exactly as decrepit as Chester remembered, foreclosed 5 years ago, abandoned ever since. They found the root cellar easily, the door clearly recently welded. They could hear banging from inside. "Cody!" Chester shouted. "That you? Uncle Chester. Get me out." It took an hour with cutting torches to get the door open. Cody stumbled out, dehydrated and terrified, babbling about 2 men in masks who'd grabbed him. He couldn't describe them beyond general height and build. No voices, No identifying features, no vehicle details. Chester drove him to the hospital and sat with him while doctors checked him over. Cody was physically fine, just shaken. The deputies took his statement, but there was nothing useful in it. "Who do you think did this?" Cody asked. Chester wanted to say Victor's name, but he had no proof. "I don't know, son, but we're going to find out." Except Chester knew they wouldn't. Whoever had taken Cody were professionals. The kind of professionals who knew how to avoid cameras, how to leave no forensic evidence, how to make someone disappear without a trace. The kind of professionals Victor trained. Back at the station, Chester pulled up Victor's service record. 23 years, almost all of it classified. Multiple deployments, multiple commendations, specialty in unconventional warfare and direct action. He trained special operations candidates in advanced combat and intelligence gathering. "Jesus Christ," Chester whispered. Victor had access to the best trained killers in the country, and he'd just given them all a reason to prove themselves. Chester's hands shook as he reached for the phone. He needed to warn his family, get them to safety, maybe get them out of state. But even as he thought it, he knew it wouldn't matter. If Victor wanted them gone, they were gone. The only question was how long before it was Chester's turn. By the end of the week, 5 more Dolans were gone. Tyrone Hayes, Wayne's cousin, vanished from a gas station parking lot. His truck was found running, door open, phone on the seat. Security cameras showed him going into the store, but he never came out. A review of all footage showed no other exits. He'd simply ceased to exist somewhere between the chips aisle and the register. Randall Gross and his wife Lori were driving to Charlotte when their car broke down on a rural stretch of highway. A tow truck stopped to help. The actual tow truck arrived an hour later to find their car empty, engine torn apart. Randall and Lori were never seen again. Their bank accounts showed no activity. Their phones went straight to voicemail. Wayne's sister Marcy Hawley was a nurse at the regional hospital. She worked third shift, parking in the employee lot behind the building. On December 30th, she clocked out at 7 a.m., walked to her car, and vanished. The hospital security footage showed her reaching her vehicle, then static for exactly 18 seconds, just long enough. When the feed cleared, she was gone. Her car sat untouched until hospital security investigated 2 hours later. Keith Branch, one of the cousins who'd been particularly enthusiastic in beating Jake, was found by a passing motorist on New Year's Eve. He was naked, zip-tied to a highway sign, a note pinned to his chest. "I helped beat a kid on Christmas Eve. Ask me about it." He was alive, technically, but incoherent. He'd been force-fed some kind of hallucinogenic cocktail and spent the next 72 hours in the hospital screaming about shadows with guns. When he finally came down, he couldn't remember anything except the beating. Over and over, he described it. Jake's face, the sounds, the blood, like it was the only memory he had left. 7 targets down. 10 to go. The Dolans were panicking. Chester held an emergency family meeting on New Year's Day. 20 people crammed into Wayne and Rebecca's living room, everyone who hadn't disappeared. Chester stood in the center, still in his sheriff's uniform, looking older than his 59 years. "This is Victor Sutton's doing," Chester said flatly. "I can't prove it in court, but we all know it. He's using his military connections to make you disappear. Some of you he's taken, some of you he's broken. The rest of you are next unless we act." "What can we do?" Wayne demanded. "He's protected on that base. We can't touch him there." "We go to the media," Chester said. "We claim he's using military resources for personal vendettas. We make enough noise that the army has to investigate him. That'll tie him up, get him suspended, maybe even arrested." "What about the video?" Rebecca asked quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. "The one I filmed, of us beating Jake." Silence. "If we go to the media, they'll ask why Victor's doing this," she continued. Her voice was shaking. "They'll want the whole story. And then that video comes out and we all go to prison." Chester's jaw worked. "We say it was self-defense. Say, Jake attacked first. There were 17 of us and one of him," Spencer said. He was still jumpy from the bathroom incident, looking over his shoulder constantly. "No one's going to believe that." "Then what?" Wayne exploded. "We just sit here and wait for them to pick us off?" "We leave," Rebecca said. "All of us. Tonight. We split up, go different directions, disappear ourselves before they can make us." Chester shook his head. "They'll find you. These people are trained to hunt high-value targets in foreign countries. You think they can't track you across state lines? So what then? Wayne's face was red. We're just fucked. We fight back, Chester said. We find out who Victor's using and we make them stop. His students, his soldiers, whoever. We threaten them, we pay them off, we blackmail them. Whatever it takes. It was a desperate plan, and everyone in the room knew it. But desperation was all they had left. They didn't realize they were already being watched. On the roof of a house 3 doors down, 2 of Victor's students lay prone with directional microphones and high-powered cameras. They'd been recording the entire meeting. Every word, every face, every desperate plan. Should we move now? One asked. The other checked his watch. Colonel said to wait until they separate. Easier to grab them individually than to breach a hardened position. You think they'll really try to fight back? Doesn't matter. They're already done. They just don't know it yet. That night, as the Dolans left Wayne's house and scattered to their homes, 2 more vanished. Arnold Ross, one of the nephews, made it halfway to his truck before a dart hit him in the neck. He woke up in the back of a van, already 3 states away. His destination, a private military contractor's training facility in Arizona that asked no questions about where Victor's students got their volunteers for live scenario training. Virginia, Washington. Spencer's girlfriend, who'd held Jake down while others kicked him, walked to her car in the driveway. The door was unlocked. She'd locked it. She always locked it, but now it was open. She hesitated, then noticed her phone sitting on the dashboard. She'd left it in her purse. How did it get there? She picked it up. A text message from an unknown number. Get in the car. Virginia turned to run. A figure stood behind her, materializing from the darkness like a ghost. Female, athletic build, face obscured by a balaclava. I'm giving you a choice, the woman said. Her voice was calm, almost kind. Get in the car and drive where I tell you, or I put a bullet in your spine right here. You'll live, but you'll never walk again. Your choice. Virginia got in the car. She drove for 6 hours under direction, taking back roads through Virginia and into West Virginia. Finally, they stopped at a trailhead in the mountains. Get out, the woman said. Virginia climbed out on shaking legs. Are you going to kill me? Walk that trail. There's a ranger station about 15 miles north. If you make it there by dawn, you get to live. If you stop, if you turn around, if you try anything clever, I'll know. I'll be watching. I can't, it's freezing. You should have thought about that before you helped beat a teenager half to death. Walk. Virginia walked. She made it about 8 miles before hypothermia set in. A forest ranger found her the next morning, delirious and frostbitten. She lost 3 toes and 2 fingers. She never told anyone what really happened. How could she? Who would believe her? 9 targets down. 8 to go. Victor sat in his office at Fort Bragg, reviewing reports from his students. Every operation had been flawless, no evidence, no witnesses, no trails. The Dolans who'd been taken were scattered across the country in various stages of hell. The ones who'd been released were too traumatized to function. Ryan Haas was breaking rocks in Colorado. Tyrone Hayes was in an unmarked grave, not dead, just buried in a shipping container, with ventilation holes and supplies that would last about a month. When he was dug up, he'd be a different person. Jake was recovering well. His jaw was healing, his spirits improving. He'd asked Victor once what was happening to Rebecca's family. The law is handling it, Victor had said. Jake knew that was only partially true, but he didn't press. Some part of him understood that his father was settling accounts in ways the law never could. Victor's phone buzzed. Encrypted message from Adam Adkins. Sheriff made contact with local FBI field office. Claims military resources being misused for criminal activity. Expect investigation. Victor smiled coldly. He'd been waiting for this. Chester Dolan was making his last move, and it was exactly what Victor had anticipated. He picked up his desk phone and called the base commander, General Raymond Cross. Sir, I need to brief you on a developing situation involving my family and a potential investigation. Come to my office, Victor. Now. 10 minutes later, Victor sat across from General Cross, a folder between them. Inside was everything. The video of Jake's beating, documentation of Rebecca's drug history, proof of Chester Dolan's corruption. Victor's students had been thorough in their research, and a complete record of every action Victor had taken since Christmas. Jesus, Victor, General Cross said after reviewing it all. You're playing with fire here. Yes, sir. And you're telling me that Sheriff Dolan is about to accuse you of using military personnel for a personal vendetta. Correct, sir. And you want to know if I'll back you when the FBI comes knocking. I want you to know the truth before they arrive, sir. Whatever you decide to do with that information is your call. General Cross leaned back, studying Victor. They'd served together in Iraq during the surge, had pulled each other out of more than one bad situation. Cross was career Army, but he was also a father. He understood. The video alone is enough to prosecute all of them, Cross said. Why not just hand it over to the DA? Because Chester owns the DA. Because Rebecca would get a plea deal and be out in 3 years. Because none of them would actually pay for what they did. Victor's voice was flat. My son's jaw was broken in 3 places, sir. They laughed while they beat him. I will not let that stand. Cross was quiet for a long moment. I never had this conversation. Sir? Whatever's happening to those people in Pinehurst, it's a local law enforcement matter. I have no knowledge of my personnel being involved. If asked, I will state that you have been on base continuously since Christmas morning, which is true. I will state that your class has been engaged in regular training activities, which is also true. Beyond that, I know nothing. Victor stood. Thank you, sir. Victor. Cross's voice stopped him at the door. I'm not helping you because I approve of what you're doing. I'm helping you because I would do the same thing if someone hurt my child. But when this is over, we're going to have a long conversation about where the line is. Understood? Understood, sir. The FBI arrived at Fort Bragg on January 3rd. 2 agents, both young and serious, with briefcases and recording devices. They interviewed Victor for 4 hours, asking about his whereabouts since Christmas, his class schedule, his relationships with current students. Victor answered every question calmly, provided documentation for everything, and never once mentioned revenge. Colonel Sutton, the lead agent, said finally, Sheriff Dolan has made serious accusations. He claims you've orchestrated the disappearances of 9 people, using military resources and personnel. That's quite an accusation. Can you account for your whereabouts for the past 2 weeks? I've been on this base continuously. General Cross can verify, as can approximately 300 other witnesses. I teach a class every morning at 0600, conduct individual training until 1600, and have dinner in the officers' mess. My movements are logged and recorded. And your students? Your current class? Also on base, following the same schedule. Special operations training is intensive. They're confined to base for the duration except for scheduled field exercises, none of which have occurred since before Christmas. The agent made notes. We'll need to interview your students. Of course, I'll provide the roster. They interviewed 15 students randomly selected from Victor's class of 32. Every one of them told the same story. Continuous training since before Christmas, no leave, no unauthorized departures. Their barracks logs confirmed it. The base security footage confirmed it. Phone records showed no suspicious calls or messages. The FBI agents returned to Victor's office, looking frustrated. Your students have airtight alibis. Because they've been here, doing their jobs. Sheriff Dolan seems to think otherwise. Sheriff Dolan's daughter filmed herself watching 17 people beat my son nearly to death. His judgment is compromised by his desire to protect his family from consequences. Victor paused. I assume you've seen the video? The agents exchanged glances. We have. Then, you know what happened to Jake. You know who's responsible. Yet instead of investigating them, you're here investigating me, because I haven't fallen apart with grief. I'm a special forces officer. I deal with trauma by compartmentalizing. That's not a crime. Colonel, 9 people connected to that incident are missing. And that's terrible. But it's not my doing. Have you considered that maybe they're running because they're guilty? Because they know that video makes them all accomplices to attempted murder. The lead agent closed his notebook. We'll be in touch if we have further questions. After they left, Victor allowed himself a small smile. The FBI would investigate, find nothing, and close the case. Chester's last play had failed. But Chester wasn't done yet. On January 5th, Wayne Dolan disappeared. He'd been staying at his brother's house Safety in Numbers when he stepped outside to smoke a cigarette. His brother heard a brief scuffle, then nothing. By the time he ran outside, Wayne was gone, his cigarette still burning on the driveway. The next day, Spencer Dolan vanished from his pawn shop. Security footage showed him behind the counter one moment, then static, then an empty store. The cash register hadn't been touched. The door was still locked from inside. 11 targets down. 6 to go. Rebecca had a full breakdown on January 6th. She showed up at Fort Bragg's visitor center, screaming and crying, demanding to see Victor. The MPs restrained her gently, and she collapsed, sobbing about shadows and guilt and her family disappearing one by one. "It's my fault," she kept saying. "I filmed it. I thought it was funny. Oh God, what did I do?" They admitted her to the psychiatric wing of the base hospital. Victor visited her once, standing at the foot of her bed while she stared at the ceiling, medicated and hollow. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." "It's too late for sorry, Rebecca. Are you making them disappear? Is it you? I haven't left this base in weeks. You know that. But it's you. Somehow. It's you." Victor didn't answer. He turned to leave. "Jake," she called after him. Will he be okay?" "No thanks to you," Victor said, and walked out. That night, 3 more Dolans vanished simultaneously. Chester had gathered the remaining 6 family members at his house for protection. He'd hired private security, set up cameras, and was armed himself. It didn't matter. The power went out at 2 a.m. Emergency lights kicked in, then those went dark too. In the darkness, Chester heard suppressed gunfire tranquilizer darts. He'd realize later, and bodies hitting the floor. He fired blindly. Heard nothing. Hit nothing. Something stung his neck. He woke up 12 hours later in his own bed, alone in the house. Everyone else was gone. On his kitchen table was a laptop, powered on, showing a video feed. 3 separate feeds, actually. Feed 1. Wayne Dolan in what looked like a shipping container, pacing and screaming. Feed 2. Spencer Dolan in a concrete room, rocking back and forth, hands over his ears. Feed 3. The 3 remaining family members, Chester's son Greg, Wayne's sister Natalie, and Spencer's mother Edith, in separate holding cells, scared but unharmed. A text appeared on screen. "You have a choice, Sheriff. Turn yourself in for corruption, confess to covering up the assault on Jake Sutton, and resign. Or I start eliminating the hostages one by one. You have 24 hours. Chester stared at the screen, hands shaking. His phone rang. Victor's number. "You son of a bitch," Chester answered. "Sheriff," Victor's voice was calm. "I told you to prove it. You couldn't. Now here we are. This is kidnapping. Terrorism. You'll do nothing. Because if you try anything, if you call anyone, if you so much as walk out your front door without doing what I've asked, people start dying. Not my hands, Sheriff. Yours. They're my family. Jake is my family. You didn't care about that on Christmas Eve. He's fine. He's recovering. You think that makes it okay?" For the first time, Victor's voice rose with anger. "You think because he lived, what your family did is somehow less monstrous. They tried to kill him. For fun? For entertainment? Because Rebecca wanted to get back at me for leaving her drug-addicted ass years ago." Chester couldn't respond. 24 hours, Victor continued, his voice cold again. "Confess, resign, take responsibility. Or, I'll do to your family what you all tried to do to my son. Except I'm better at it." The line went dead. Chester sat in his kitchen for hours, staring at the feeds. His son looked terrified but unharmed. The others too. They had food, water, basic amenities. But the message was clear. They were completely at Victor's mercy. He thought about calling the FBI, the state police, anyone. But what would he tell them? That the man he'd accused of using military resources for revenge had somehow proven it by kidnapping 6 people without leaving his base. They'd never believe him. They'd never find them in time. Chester Dolan had been a cop for 30 years. He'd bent rules, taken bribes, protected his family from consequences. It had been a good life, comfortable and powerful. But now that life was over, Victor had dismantled it with surgical precision. At dawn on January 7th, Chester Dolan walked into the Moore County Courthouse and requested to speak with the DA. He brought with him a laptop containing Rebecca's video of Jake's beating, documents proving he'd covered up previous Dolan family crimes, and evidence of bribes he'd taken over the years. "I want full immunity for my son, my niece, and Spencer's mother," Chester said. "In exchange, I'll plead guilty to everything. Conspiracy, obstruction, corruption, all of it. The DA stared at him. Chester, what the hell? Just do it. My family is being held hostage. If I don't confess, they die. I need your word, they'll be released safely. Who's holding them? Chester laughed bitterly. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. The deal was struck by noon. Chester confessed to everything, resigned as sheriff, and accepted a plea agreement for 15 years in federal prison. His son, niece, and Spencer's mother were released that evening, found unharmed in a rest stop parking lot in South Carolina, with no memory of how they got there. Wayne, Spencer, and the others were never found. Officially, they remained missing persons. Unofficially, they were serving life sentences in places far worse than any prison, some in forced labor camps, some in experimental drug trials, some simply locked away where no one would ever find them. Victor's students have been creative with their placements. Jake Sutton recovered fully from his injuries. He returned to UNC in February, threw himself into his studies, and graduated with honors. He never asked his father for details about what happened to Rebecca's family. He didn't need to. Rebecca spent 6 months in psychiatric care, then was released to a supervised living facility. She'd never recover fully from the guilt and trauma. Every night, she dreamed of Jake's face, bloody and broken, and woke up screaming. Victor continued teaching at Fort Bragg. His class of 32 students completed their training and received their certifications. Every one of them went on to distinguished careers in special operations. None of them ever spoke about their extra credit assignment, but among Victor's former students, there was a shared understanding. You don't mess with the colonel's family. On a warm evening in April, Chester Dolan called Victor from prison. He'd been there 3 months, adjusting poorly to incarceration. His lawyer had arranged the call. I know you did this, Chester said without preamble. I know it was you. Your students, your plan, your revenge. Prove it, Victor replied calmly. I can't. That's the beauty of it, isn't it? You never left the base. They never left the base. It's all airtight. But I know. And that knowledge is eating you alive. Good. Chester was quiet for a moment. Why didn't you just kill us? Why this elaborate torture? Because death would have been too easy. You needed to understand what it feels like to be helpless, to watch your family suffer, to know there's nothing you can do about it. That's what you did to Jake. That's what you did to me. I just returned the favor. You're a monster. No, Sheriff. I'm a father. There's a difference. Victor hung up. 3 months later, Chester Dolan was found dead in his cell. The official report listed it as suicide by hanging. The unofficial truth was that one of his cellmates, a former Army Ranger serving time for manslaughter, had made it look like suicide. The cellmate had been one of Victor's students from 5 years earlier. He'd volunteered for the job. 14 targets eliminated. 3 broken and imprisoned. Rebecca destroyed mentally. Chester dead. Mission complete. Jake graduated on a sunny Saturday in May. Victor sat in the audience with his current wife, Amelia, a trauma surgeon he'd met at the base hospital, and watched his son accept his diploma. Jake looked healthy and strong, his jaw healed, his confidence restored. After the ceremony, Jake found Victor in the crowd. They hugged, and Jake whispered, "Thank you, Dad, for everything." Victor pulled back, looked his son in the eye. "You never have to thank me for protecting you. That's what fathers do. I know what it cost. What you did. I don't know the details, and I don't need to. But I know. Then you know why I can never talk about it. Why we'll never discuss it again after today." Jake nodded. "It's over now, right? It's finished?" Victor smiled. "It's finished. You're safe. You have your whole life ahead of you. That's all that matters." They walked out into the sunshine, leaving the darkness behind them. Jake would go on to become a successful engineer, marry, have children of his own. He'd tell them about their grandfather, the decorated Special Forces officer who taught soldiers how to protect their country. He'd never tell them about Christmas Eve 2024, or what followed. Some stories were meant to stay buried. Victor Sutton returned to Fort Bragg and resumed his teaching duties. His reputation among the special operations community grew not because anyone knew what he'd done, but because his students came out the best trained, most loyal, most effective operators in the military. They'd do anything for the colonel, anything at all. And sometimes, late at night, when Victor couldn't sleep, he'd think about the 17 people who'd beaten his son. He'd wonder if what he'd done was justice or vengeance, if there was even a difference. He'd wonder if he'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Then he'd remember Jake's face in the hospital, broken and bloody. He'd remember Rebecca laughing as she filmed. He'd remember the fear in his son's eyes. And Victor would sleep just fine, because some people deserved what they got. And some fathers would burn the world down to protect their children. Victor Sutton was both.
This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.